In the quiet coastal town of Macondo, where the waves broke against black rocks like ancient drums and fishermen swore the sea carried secrets older than the people who lived beside it, Mrs. Adara Mensah lived a life built carefully from discipline, prayer, and perseverance, believing she finally stood on solid ground after years of struggle, heartbreak, and slow rebuilding. Her work as an administrator at Macondo Community Academy demanded early mornings and late evenings, but she held her home together with intention, trying her best to keep her 3 children grounded as her husband recovered from a long, unexplained illness that left him spiritually withdrawn and emotionally fragile. And so when she hired a maid named Z, a slender young woman with quiet footsteps, warm eyes, and an almost unnatural gentleness in her voice, Adara felt as though a long-awaited blessing had at last stepped into her home, unaware that blessings sometimes arrive disguised as traps from the very first week. Z displayed an efficiency almost too perfect to believe. Laundry folded before dawn, meals prepared with skill Adara had never seen, floors shining with an unexplainable glow, the baby calm in her arms as though Z carried a soothing aura, and the older children, usually restless, speaking softly whenever she entered the room, their eyes following her with both curiosity and a strange kind of fascination that made Adara uneasy in ways she could not yet explain. Still, she pushed the discomfort aside, grateful for the help, whispering silent prayers of thanks that she could finally breathe without feeling she was drowning in responsibilities. But soon small oddities began to form cracks in her peace. Z often stood in the hallway long after midnight, frozen and unblinking as though listening to voices beyond human hearing. Sometimes the children mumbled about footsteps circling their rooms even though Z insisted she never went upstairs at night. Once, Adara found the living room windows open at dawn though she was certain she had locked them, and the cold morning air carried a faint burnt scent she could not place. And though she tried to rationalize every strange occurrence as exhaustion, her spirit whispered warnings she was not yet ready to face. Meanwhile, her husband, Samuel, remained in the hospital, weak and drifting between sleep and confusion. His doctors puzzled by symptoms that appeared and vanished like shifting shadows, leaving Adara alone to juggle the house, the children, and the pressures of work, which made Z's presence feel indispensable despite the unease that grew steadily in her chest. One morning, the unsettling truth began to surface when Adara returned home unexpectedly after forgetting an important file. She approached the front door, and immediately sensed something wrong, for the usually warm, bustling home felt too quiet, too still, as though the air itself was holding its breath. She stepped inside cautiously, the silence pressing against her ears, and that was when she heard it, a deep, low growl rumbling from her infant son's nursery, a sound not belonging to any human or animal she knew, a vibration that crawled across the floor and wrapped around her ankles like a warning. With trembling hands she pushed the nursery door open just enough to peek inside, and what she saw ruptured the thin veil of normalcy she had clung to for weeks. Z was seated beside the crib, but she no longer looked human. Her skin had darkened and cracked like burnt wood, faint horn-like curves pulsed beneath her braided hair, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural amber light that illuminated the shadows around her. Adara gasped and instinctively cried the name of God aloud, and in an instant the creature snapped its head toward her, the glow dimming as if someone had blown out an invisible flame. And then, like a mirage collapsing, Z's appearance melted back into her usual soft-faced human form, though her chest still heaved with the remnants of whatever monstrous form had been present moments before. The shock locked Adara's limbs, but she forced herself to stand firm, demanding in a shaking voice, "What are you?" And instead of running or resisting, Z lowered her head with a strange, calm resignation, as though she had expected this moment to come. She confessed with a voice too steady for comfort that she was not human, but a being sent from a hidden realm that lay beyond the coastline, a realm where entities fed not on flesh, but on influence, emotion, and the quiet unraveling of families. She explained that her mission was to infiltrate Adara's home, weaken its unity, sow division, and ultimately claim the youngest child for her realm. But every attempt she made was disrupted by Adara's nightly prayers, prayers whispered over each child's pillow, prayers uttered while folding clothes, prayers spoken under her breath at the hospital beside Samuel, prayers that created rings of intangible fire she could not cross, blocking her from completing the assignment she had been sent to fulfill. She revealed that she had tried countless tactics, spoiling food subtly, slipping nightmares into the children's dreams, whispering confusion into Samuel's weakened spirit from afar, but none had succeeded as long as Adara remained spiritually anchored. Z admitted she had gained some access by manipulating Samuel emotionally during a vulnerable season of his illness, whispering doubts into his spirit, feeding his loneliness, trying to erode his bond with Adara, but even that failed under the weight of Adara's unwavering faith, discipline, and determination to preserve her household despite exhaustion threatening to break her. Cornered and weakened by the power emanating from Adara's prayers, Z's form flickered again, her voice trembling now as fear replaced arrogance, and she begged for mercy, confessing that her mission had failed and that she would soon be recalled to her realm. In disgrace, Adara, with her heart pounding like thunder, refused to let fear rule her actions and instead called upon God with a strength she did not know she possessed, commanding every darkness in her home to leave, and as her voice rose with conviction, Z let out a sound that echoed like cracking stone before dissolving into a cloud of dark smoke that twisted violently, then vanished through the open window as though carried away by an unseen wind. The moment the creature disappeared, the entire house shifted, the air warmed, the shadows softened, and the unsettling chill that had plagued the rooms lifted instantly. Adara fell to her knees in relief and shock, whispering prayers of gratitude, tears falling freely. But she did not allow herself to collapse completely, for she still had Samuel to see, and she sensed strongly that Z's influence had contributed to his mysterious sickness. She rushed to the hospital, and as she placed her hands over Samuel and prayed with every ounce of strength she had left, something remarkable happened. His breathing steadied, his eyes slowly opened with clarity she had not seen in weeks, and he clutched her hand as tears streamed down his cheeks, telling her he felt as though a heavy weight had been lifted from his chest, as though chains he did not know existed had snapped off him. In that moment, Adara understood fully the unseen battles she had been fighting, battles that had tried to disguise themselves as ordinary stress, marital tension, childhood fears, and daily confusion. The family returned home together within days, and the children, once restless, began sleeping peacefully, no longer haunted by unexplained dreams or distant footsteps. Adara filled the home with prayers, scripture, songs, and light, cleansing every room until even the corners felt warm and safe again. And though the memories of Zulu lingered like a shadow at the edges of her mind, she refused to let fear overshadow the truth she had gained. In the months that followed, Adara became wiser, more discerning, more spiritually anchored. She no longer ignored the small warnings her spirit whispered, no longer allowed exhaustion to blind her to subtle dangers, no longer assumed that every gentle smile or humble posture meant purity of intention, for she had learned firsthand how deception often arrives clothed in perfection. She strengthened her marriage with Samuel through open conversations, patience, and mutual renewal of faith, understanding that emotional gaps, even innocent ones, can become doors for forces she now knew were very real. She protected her children not with paranoia, but with wisdom, remaining attentive, prayerful, and proactive in safeguarding their hearts and minds. And whenever neighbors spoke of hiring new help or trusting strangers too quickly, Adara felt a deep, urgent responsibility to warn them, not with fear-mongering but with truth, that not every helper is a blessing, not every soft voice is sincere, not every offering of assistance is rooted in genuine goodwill. She taught women in her community to listen to their intuition, guard their homes, and trust the quiet alarm bells of the soul, for she had lived through the consequences of ignoring them. Though the world outside remained unaware of the supernatural battle fought quietly within her walls, Adara knew with certainty that evil rarely announces itself with thunder. It often arrives politely, offering help, wearing a pleasant face, speaking softly, acting humble, yet carrying intentions that seek to weaken, separate, and eventually destroy. Her home, once vulnerable, became a fortress of unity, resilience, and spiritual sensitivity, and Adara, standing at its center, emerged not as a victim of deception, but as a woman transformed by revelation, Her story spread quietly among trusted circles, reminding everyone who heard it that discernment is a gift, prayer is a shield, and the greatest battles are often the ones no one sees. And though she never forgot the morning she discovered Zui's true nature, Idara carried the memory not as fear, but as wisdom, an eternal reminder that protecting one's family requires both vigilance and faith, and that no darkness, no matter how cunningly disguised, can overpower a home anchored in light. If you are inspired by this story, like, comment and subscribe to the channel.